Hello, my name is Ronnie Fulton and I'm a professional woodworker, and I have had the awesome opportunity to have the new Kapex Cordless KSC 60 in my shop for about 6 weeks now. I've been super impressed with it. My comments are coming from being the owner of a Kapex for about 14 years that I've used in my shop and mobily as well. So there's a lot of things about this saw that I appreciate using it mobily that I'll cover, but I also want to cover on some of the differences between the two saws and hopefully allow you to make a decision on which saw is best for you. Starting off on the features on this saw, we've got the locking tab over here, just like the full-size one that stops the saw from being able to rotate. You also have a locking tab that keeps the saw in the down position. Once you raise that up, you have a very, very smooth slide. And then you also have 12 inches of capacity for cutting, which is the same as the full Kapex. On the sides, the fences are smaller than the original Kapex, and I'm definitely going to be adding an accessory fence for when I want to cut crown molding, like 4.5 or 5.5 nested. You have a little less capacity on cutting height above the blade. I would say it's about 5.5 inches, good 5.5 inches below the blade. Another difference is the lock is actually pushing the button in, and that activates the saw to be able to come down. Instead of a laser, we now have a shadow line, and the shadow line gives you a perfect line of where the blade is going to cut on the material without having to worry about aligning lasers. I wasn't sure how I was going to get used to this, but it took no time at all. I'm used to the 2 lasers. It's been great. I've not had any issues with it, and I really like how the shadow line is reflecting the blade. So if you change the difference in your kerf of your blade, your line is going to still be exactly right and dialed in without any adjustments needed. Sawk and Miter, left and right, a full 60 degrees on either side. It's nice and smooth. One finger can move it. They also have a really nice feature that if you slide it to the left, it turns the detents off, so you can slide it freely, or you slide this to the right and you have your detents back, which is every 5 degrees. And then you can lock it down with the end handle. For material hold down, you can use the standard Festool clamps. You can insert one on the front side of the slot, and there's also slots on the back side that you can hold down material. And there's 4 different locations for that. You can also adjust the fence by loosening up the nut on the back, and you can slide this back and forth to get out of the way for when you're making bevel cuts. On bevel cuts, you have a locking knob on the back, and it will tilt a full 47 degrees on each side. This green button right here will unlock it to allow it to full go on this side. I'm using the saw on the optional base and stand with extensions, but you can use this saw by itself, and they provide these little feet that go on the bottom part, and that allows it to lock into an MFT table, the holes in the MFT table. And when you use them with this, a fun fact is that this sustainer is exactly the same height, so you can use these as outfeed tables if you're using it on a bench. In addition, you can also loosen up these knobs, and these extensions come out about 3 or 4 inches on each side to give you more cutting table capacity. I've been very impressed with the 5.2 amp hour batteries. You can run this off from 1 or 2 batteries. If you just run it off from 1, it runs at 50% power, but that's great if you find yourself in a situation where you really need to make a few more cuts. The speed dial indicator is right here on the side where you can adjust based on what type of materials that you're cutting. Also included in the saw, almost in a hiding place on the back, is the awesome bevel guide, which is similar to the same one that's on the front side of the original Kapex. This allows you to use it in inside and outside corners. You just put it in the corner, and then you line it up on the table, and you mark the shadow line, and it will show you exactly what angle to cut. You don't even need to know the angle. You just cut whatever it says on this bevel guide. It's very nice. And it's tucked right here out of the way for when you need it. For battery life, I've ran a few tests just to get a good idea in my mind of how long the batteries last. And one of the tests that I did recently was I took 2x6 pine boards, and I just wanted to see how many times I could cut with one charge of 2 18-volt batteries. So that's 36 volts of power. How long could I cut? And I'm going to put that clip beside here. I basically ended up getting 300 cuts on the 2x6 in one charge. And that tells me a lot, because I know that if I'm cutting trim or crown molding, it's a lot smaller material. And that also tells me that I'd be easily able to cut until middle of the day, lunch break, or even not a full day. And having the duo charger, which is also a new release, that is a very fast charger. It charges the 2 batteries at the same time in about 20 minutes. So you could always, with 4 batteries, you could always have batteries in rotation and never run out of battery power. Here's a really cool feature of the stand that you may not know exists. Blade storage. A simple green little screw knob, and you can store, I've got 3 blades I'm storing on the bottom of the stand. Just so nice. Just screw it in with just a few turns, and that way you have all the blades you need right close to your fingertips. While we're talking about the blades on this saw measure about a little less than 8.5 inches. The blades I have currently stored in my stand are a fine cut wood blade, which it actually tells on this little colored wheel right here. I have a plastics and aluminum blade, and I have a laminate HPL blade. So that way I am covered with all the different types of blades, ready to go, tucked in underneath the stand. For dust collection on the Kapex, I've been using the also cordless CTC MIDI, which is a 36 volt cordless vac. And it has worked amazing. There's a port on the back, just slide it on. You can sync the Bluetooth batteries up with the vac so that every time you activate the saw, the vac kicks on, and it's worked great. Another dust collection option is using this bag, which has a handy zipper on the back for cleaning it out. And you just take the arrow and line it up with the top, slide it on, and turn it sideways. When I first started using this, I had the bag upright and it was running into this, and I found turning it this way allows more dust to fill the bag without getting clogged up. Works much better, and it doesn't get in the way. This saw also includes the same trenching option. If you pull this handle down, it'll lock how far the blade goes down, and you can adjust the depth by spinning this green knob. That will allow some trenching if you wanted to make some grooves without going too deep. And it's always been a handy feature on the other Kapex, so I'm glad they included that in this. Then do that, and it goes all the way down to the bottom. If you happen to own the original stand, it's important to note you also can still use this stand. You just have to change out the black plastic base for it to work with the saw. I really like how the black plastic base gives you some additional room on each side of the saw, and then the extensions just clamp on with some thumb screws on each side, and setup of the extensions is extremely fast. I think you could have these for a while and not realize that there's a thumb screw on the back that allows you to extend this out even further to where you have 8 feet on each side of the blade, which is more than ample for most jobs. I love this. So after owning the Kapex and the new cordless KSC 60 Kapex miter saw, what are my thoughts? If you use your saw outside of the shop any at all, I definitely would consider the cordless. It's very nice to not have to look for power cords, and the performance of this saw is very comparable to its larger Kapex brother. The KSC 60 is extremely impressive. The battery life can last for a full day to a half a day, and when using with the duo charger, this charges the batteries, 2 batteries at the same time within like 20 minutes. So you really could be charging always a backup set and never be out of batteries. So if you're watching this video, I'm sure a lot of you are trying to decide which of the saws are best for you between the full-size Kapex or the new cordless KSC 60 Festool Kapex. And here's my take. If you're working dedicated in a shop and you're not going to be mobile, I still think the full-size Kapex is a great option because you don't need to worry about weight and you don't need to worry about charging the batteries. For mobile use, this is an answer to everything that I was wanting for my van and working on the job site. I also don't even have to worry about finding a power cord, which is so nice because sometimes even when there's power at a job site, you're fighting for those 2 outlets with other contractors. So it's nice to be able to set up wherever you want and you don't have to worry about power outlets. Another option for someone may want to consider if you're in a garage shop and you have limited outlets, it's nice to be able to have the cordless option so you're not trying to use all of your outlets for all your tools, you can let your outlets be used for other things and have your saw set up wherever you want, like say in front of the garage door when you're building. So I think that there's a good market for both. If you're a professional, of course, as you see here, I would say consider getting both. I can let my Kapex sit here in the shop, but when I need to go out and work, I can just keep this in the van and I'm spending less time moving tools around. So for me, I actually prefer having both, but if I had to choose one, I would say go with what type of work you're going to be doing. If you're going to be stationary, maybe the Kapex is a better choice, but if you're working mobily a lot, this might be your new best friend. If you have any questions at all, feel free to leave it for me in the comments and I'll get back with you. Other than that, thanks for watching and have fun building.